Now that we have our budget and we know how long it's going to take to pay down our debts and we've agreed to this month's budget, it's now to start walking this path. When tracking against the budget, I like to say rubber meets the road because it's like driving a car. You're going to end up making small corrections to your behaviors or to the budget to stay on track. In order to stay on track, we have to frequently check where we are, and how we do this is we actually use these pay period spreadsheets, like pay period 1. Now, when my husband and I first started this budgeting long ago, we tried a couple things, and one of those that kind of comes to my mind is the envelope system. And that's where you actually take what you budgeted for each month and place the cash in an envelope. So, for example, a grocery envelope would have $350 in it, and that's what we had to spend for the month. What we found that we were doing is we were robbing Peter to pay Paul, so to speak, in that once we ran out of grocery money in that envelope, we would go into like pet expenses envelope and grab some money from there. The end result of that is we really had no clue how much we were actually spending. So that's why we came up with these pay period spreadsheets. It really controls and helps us evaluate our behaviors. So first, let me take you through this pay period spreadsheet and how it's set up. Across the top, we've got our categories, and these categories we chose because these are the ones that we frequently used and we could easily get out of control with. Dining, we could easily get out of control with that. Groceries, all of these categories we easily get out of control with. So when you're evaluating your pay period spreadsheets, you're going to want to add or even change some of these based on how you live. Down below in the spreadsheet, we have the total amount, and that is calculated. Again, all the gray cells are calculated. The budget is actually pulling from your budget spreadsheet for that particular category. So if you change the spreadsheet, this is something you're going to want to keep in mind to make those modifications as well. The difference, this is the amount remaining. So if you actually fill this out, and as we did here for January 20th and 22nd, we entered our automobile gas amount. That tells us we've spent $80 and we have $270 remaining for the month. So how we actually use this spreadsheet is we fill it out twice a week, Mondays and Fridays. We enter in the transactions, and there's several things that this reveals to us. Number one is on Mondays, we know how much we spent over the weekend, and we know how much remained for the month and by category. So by month, I can look at how much remains for the month down here, and by category, another thing to look at is the overall how much remains in the month total that you have budgeted for those expenses. We also do this on Friday because, again, it tells us how much we could spend on each category over the weekend. Dining was a big one for us over the weekend, so that's one that we looked at and determined whether we could or not. And it also started revealing behaviors on how we were spending things. So, for example, I entered in some transactions here where on the 23rd of January, I spent $125 in clothing, and then the next day I went out and bought a pair of shoes. But the problem there is I only budgeted $50 for that, and I went and spent $175 in 1 week, 2 days actually. So that makes me start looking at my behaviors and why did I do that? And did I not budget well, or am I emotionally spending? And as I talk about in the ebook, there was a lot of self-discovery that I went through as we were budgeting over the years, and it's something that you'll continuously find as you budget year after year. So again, we do this twice a week. You may want to do it more frequently, especially in the beginning, so that you can really keep track of your total budget and make sure that you're adhering to it and make those small corrections either to your budget or your behavior. Once you're at the end of the budget cycle, and even intermittently, you're wanting to go back to this actual tab and start actually filling out your actuals. So for example, when you go through your bank account every Monday and Friday, you're going to see deposits. Those are your Paychecks, you're going to want to go ahead and enter those in as they occur. Utilities, those are going to be automatically debited likely, so you'll want to add those in as well. So as you do this, you get to keep an overall picture of where you are within your budget. And so here, for example, I was $14. I have $14 remaining in my overall budget. That's a good thing. When I took a look at my budget, what I actually budgeted for the month, I had planned to only save $25. That's not bad. Okay. There's another worksheet in here, budget versus actual, and what this does is actually gives you a graphical review of your income and expenses. So here, for example, actual income versus actual expenses. So as I fill out my actual tab, this data will populate. Budget expenses versus actual expenses. So here I was pretty close. Again, it's pulling from this actual tab. That's why it's very important to fill out that. It's very important to fill these out so that you start recognizing your behaviors. And that's the whole purpose behind this whole exercise, is so that you can change your behaviors, change how you impact your family, because you have a greater desire to really impact your family. These little small changes here are going to benefit big time in the long run. So just keep at it. Twice a week, go through the spreadsheet, update these transactions, and start walking the path of that budget.